And welcome everybody to another episode of Hollywood Kitchen. I am here today with my TCM buddies, Ruth Munsack and Danny Miller. And we are going to talk all about Peter Lorre, his life, his career, and his food. And you know, one thing I'm discovering on my cemetery tour recently, goth girls are so into Peter Lorre. I've had several of them basically lose their minds when they see his grave. And I'm used to that with Ty Power and Valentino. I'm not used to that with Peter Lorre. It's new. And one of the viewers of Hollywood Kitchen wrote me and asked if I would do a Peter Lorre episode. I was going to make this a Valentine's Day episode because of all the goth girl love he's getting. But due to massive computer problems, I've been waylaid just a little bit, but that's okay. It's belated Valentine's Day. And so we're going to talk about Peter Lorre. And the recipe we're going to make, by the way, is from a 1939 cookbook. Thank you, Marnie Rafter, for gifting this to me, called What Actors Eat When They Eat. The co-author, Kenneth Harlan, of this is actually at Hollywood Forever. Oh, okay. And we're going to do the Peter Lorre recipe for pork chops with scalloped potatoes. And also, we are going to have an interview I pre-recorded last week due to our schedules with the Peter Lorre biographer, Stephen D. Youngkin. And I want to do a special shout out to Alan Brody for helping make this interview happen. I don't think Stephen does a lot of these, so I feel really fortunate to have gotten it. So welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me.
Great to be here. Love Peter Lorre, of course. Can't wait to read that book.
Yes. And of course, Peter Lorre, has his time with Cary Grant. So, there's always lovely
old lace
to have a Cary Grant adjacent in any Hollywood Kitchen.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And, we're going to talk a lot about his life. And he really craved diverse roles and sadly didn't get a lot of them in Hollywood. So we'll talk all about that.
I think one of my introductions to him as a kid was an odd one for Peter Lorre because of so many famous movies, and I love the original Man Who Knew Too Much.
Yeah, yes.
But
yes.
what I first saw him in, and I wonder what he thought of this, but I loved it. I thought he was great in it, was Silk Stockings.
Oh,
in his later career, where he was doing more comedy roles, almost a parody of himself in a way.
Exactly. But I also too love the character cartoon of him.
Yes,
it's so brilliant.
Yes.
I'm like whoever did it spot on. It was really fun.
Actually, an entire book about that called The Animated Peter Lorre, and I've ordered it from our friends at Larry Edmonds, waiting on that to get shipped. But I want to read that because that's how I first saw him, with the giant eyes and that voice.
But they nailed it. They nailed that animation.
It was great when Hollywood and the cartoons, and Looney Tunes met. So, but this was great. So, but again, he had a lot of diverse characters he plays. He kind of got typecast, for a bit. He wasn't the handsome, charming, suave ladies' man.
Tell that to the goth girls.
Tell that to the goth. Stephen, in our conversation, he confirmed. He goes, "Goth girls going nuts. That is the thing."
I love anyone under 50 that knows who he is. So
well, great too. But reality is reality. Let's be real. No Ty Power here. But his talent was
immense.
Epic, and he knew what to do. He knew it. He just, like they say, what a character. And he is definitely, without a doubt, what a character.
And they will be showing Stranger on the Third Floor, the upcoming Turner Classic Movies Film Festival, and it's getting a brand new DVD release as well.
That's great. That's great. So it's always good too to get their names back out there in the public lexicon, so people get to know them again. And exactly. I know that we all probably talk to other friends of ours who aren't, classic film people and say, "Oh my gosh, I just watched this great film," or "You might like this film if you like this." So you never know. You need to reel them in slowly.
Well, here's what we're going to do. First off, Stephen D. Youngkin confirmed for me Peter was not a cook. So when Danny texted me earlier today, "Carrie, I'm going to make some changes," I was like, not a problem. I don't think Peter would object. Now, Vincent Price, Joan Crawford,
never
would.
Never
touch
that. No. Most of them I wouldn't touch. But Peter, when Carrie sent me the recipe, I'm like, okay,
no.
Peter comes from a Jewish family, and what? Pork chop?
I know.
Yes.
But on the other hand, many Jews, including myself, do partake, although I don't cook that often. But when I saw the scalloped potatoes and it was an odd recipe, I think, Ruth, you're going to make it a little bit more closer.
I'm trying to make it closer too, but it definitely needed some help. Like, it says condensed milk. how much condensed milk should you be adding?
Sweetened
And-
or non-sweetened?
But there's no such thing as non-sweetened condensed milk.
Well, I didn't know that.
That's what
Okay.
condensed milk
Wow,
is, sweetened.
okay.
And there's 6 pork chops and potatoes. I mean, so
Right.
there's not even a temperature. Yeah,
It's a warm oven, so
yeah.
I cooked mine at 375. So I added,
Okay.
when I heard scalloped potatoes, I added cheese
Mhm.
because that's how I know it. And I did add some onions, which I think you're doing
Yes,
too.
yes.
And a couple other flavorings. I have some thyme in there, a little paprika. But I cooked mine earlier. It takes forever to cook this thing because I have 5 boneless pork chops embedded under here. Forgive me, grandparents.
The ancestors will be okay.
Yes. We don't keep kosher, but we don't make a lot of pork. So let's see. Let's see if this is. Should I cut some?
Yes.
And this is Danny made a casserole style. And again, many of these recipes are open to interpretation.
Yes.
Let's put it that way.
And again, I'm doing mine layered with the potatoes.
Yeah, as I
onions,
did.
and
I
pork
followed
chops.
as much as I could.
And I am
Maybe not. Here's some.
modifying the sauce that it's going to bake in, and see how it turns out. So I'm curious too.
I used regular milk because I agree. Like what? Sweetened condensed milk?
But I don't know. But I think that there's something about that. I don't know. But I'm going to try it, and I'm going to throw in a little milk and sour cream to give myself that sauce a little.
Boy, it exudes a lot of juice.
Yes, we'll see what happens.
Okay, here's one.
Okay.
You have a napkin.
Just need a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I can divide that in two then.
It looks like the cheese on the top, though, kind of gave it a crispy sort of texture.
Yeah,
It does.
And say, I'm all about texture. I like a good texture.
Yes.
So.
And what was interesting about the recipe was that it asked for Irish potatoes. Does anyone know what an Irish potato is? And of course, I took to the Encyclopedia Britannica, i.e. the Google, and looked up what's considered an Irish potato. And it's basically the smaller white potatoes. They tend to be creamier when you bake them or boil them however you want to use them. So I understood that because the russet is harder and it takes longer to bake. So I had my pork chops are thinner, and I have the onions are going to be layered, and then a layer of a potato that's sliced thinner. So we'll see how that
Yeah, mine were kind of thick. I bought them at farmer's market this morning. Really good pork chops. So we'll see.
All right, here's a close-up view of how thick Danny's pork chop is.
Oh yeah, I can see exactly why yours had a baking time. Yeah.
Well, remember the Hattie McDaniel? The last time all 3 of us were together, we did the Hattie McDaniel Thanksgiving pumpkin pie, and the pie was real thick, which led to a longer baking time as well. So
yes, and we also did the corn
pudding.
Pudding.
Oh God, that was
that was good.
I told Donald Bogle about the episode because he was on, we had a pre-recorded interview, and he said the next time he comes to LA, he wants to have some Hattie food. So I definitely got to work on making him Hattie food and maybe bringing it in some Tupperware to give him at TCM or something, because
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's tasty.
For my first pork chops, again, forgive me, Hasidic great-grandparents.
It's being chronicled on video too, Danny. So you're alrighty. I'm gonna take a bite. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna eat Danny's food, and then I'm gonna play the Stephen D. Youngkin interview, and then we'll come back after that, and then we'll talk to Ruth about her process, how it turned out, what happened, and
I think my baking time will probably be shorter because I'm doing thinner pork chops.
Right.
I'm doing a sear on them before, and then I'm going to do a layer of potato, onion, pork chop, potato, onion, pork chop, and I'm going to pour the sauce on it.
Okay. If it's not ready by the time we come back, we'll take pictures.
We'll definitely take pictures.
Report back in the blog post.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
But when we do come back, I also, just because I wanted to bring in some of the true Jewish Hungarian history of Peter Lorre, got some, I wish I'd made them, but I got some Hungarian Jewish pastries. They had a lot of poppy seed cakes and some other things that we can enjoy when we come back.
This is actually really good.
And they're absolutely gorgeous. The pastries are beautiful.
This has a really good flavor to it as well.
I am going to serve it to my family later, and we'll talk about Peter Lorre. Maybe we should watch M tonight and scare the bejesus out of all of them.
Or arsenic and old lace.
Oh, you can never go wrong.
Yes. Or Casablanca or Maltese Falcon.
Yeah.
Maltese Falcon, yes, yes.
That's
You
one
know,
of my favorite.
I read that, and I'm sure he talks about it, but in the original Man Who Knew Too Much, he didn't even speak English yet.
Yes,
This whole
yes.
part phonetically.
Yes,
That's
yes.
incredible.
And that's
That-
really interesting for people that can do that.
Mhm.
Listen.
And of course, both versions, and I love the Doris Day, Jimmy Stewart version, but like that's one of the rare remakes. Of course, they're both
Yeah.
by Alfred Hitchcock,
Yeah.
and they're both fantastic. I love them both. I can't think of that many other remakes that I love them both.
And isn't it interesting that he was able to do that? To
Mhm.
remake a movie he'd originally made years apart for, learning other stuff and other techniques.
Yeah.
And I think that's just fascinating to be able to have that opportunity. It's like how Olivier, played a lot of Shakespearean roles over and over again. And so Burton, they did it as they aged.
Right.
And so it was even,
And sometimes better when they were older.
Right?
And DeMille made silent version of Ten Commandments in the early 20s, and then the talk. You could just do like a book or series of films about the director remaking their own.
Well, I've always wanted the TCM festival. I thought it would be so cool to do like both Magnificent Obsessions together, couple Little Women's together. Wouldn't that be great? I would love that. And then you could talk about the differences. But in this case, and I love how he tailored the second version of his film for Doris Day's singing talent. She's a retired singer, and then that becomes obviously a crucial part of the plot.
It is, I can, when she and the son are singing together, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And then the fact that when he hears her and then he whistles, I mean, you go like,
You know what they should have done? Hitch, do you hear me? Wouldn't it be cool if Peter Lorre was in that one too?
Oh,
should have brought, had like a.
Wouldn't that have been really? Yeah.
This brings me to a very important question that is definitely probably on the minds of many these days. With the whole AI thing, I was having dinner with a friend the other night, and I said something to the effect of, "Oh, I wish so and so had been in this movie." And he said, "Well, with AI, they can be."
No, they can't.
No, because here's my argument. I feel like you're kind of taking away artistic agency from that person.
And their soul.
And their soul.
On.
Like it, I know I'm like 100-year-old person in a younger person's body, and I freely admit
We all are.
We all are. But I just don't like the idea of someone having no control over how their image, voice, body are used. That is very unsettling to me, and I do not like it. But I've had other people that think it's the greatest thing.
It's horrible. The only time that I've seen it used where I will accept it is, and even then sparingly, but like in some movies where you get a flashback and they have that person de-aged, but it's actually that person and they're participating in it.
Okay.
That's worked a few times for me.
Okay.
But no, I don't want a new movie with Marilyn Monroe. Thank you very much. It's not her.
No, it's not her. It's not the same thing, and she was a singular person.
And we don't need. I just don't think it's necessary. I really don't.
I don't either.
But I understand, like, if you're doing a remake of a Colosseum scene in Rome, and you don't want to have all the extras. Because they had extra. I mean, these were people sitting up in there.
Oh yeah.
I totally get that part. I get, like, if you're you're playing a baseball or football game and you want to fill the stadium.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want
I
to
don't mind
pay,
that at all.
all people to fill this whole stadium and with all the consent. No, I get that. A beautiful mountain range. I don't mind them using AI for it.
Yeah.
And then it's, then whatever they do, on the set, they built in Paramount to make it look like you're hiking it. I totally don't mind any of that. I do not want to see any actor AI'd in a brand new movie, and it's all this. That's not.
Some of us Wicked fans, which my family is, were scared that in the second one, where Dorothy appears more, because they could have made it look like Judy Garland, and I was just so relieved they did not. They didn't at all. They never showed her face. It was just like the back of her, and it was a different story. But that was a good decision not to do.
Yes. So we're going to play now while Ruth works on her version of this. We're going to play an interview I did about a week ago with Peter Lorre's official biographer, Stephen D. Youngkin, author of The Lost One, A Life of Peter Lorre. This is a thick book. It is an excellent book.
It's a great cover and title.
Yes. And by the way, I have recently been invited to host an event about Peter Lorre at Monsterpalooza in Pasadena on May 31st at 1 o'clock. So you will kind of hear me mention that to Stephen because I'm trying to convince him to fly down for it. But anyway, we'll see what happens. But he was fascinating. I'm so grateful he took the time to speak to me, and I could have talked to him like all day long, but the interview is about 37 minutes. We go into a lot of stuff, and hope you'll enjoy it.
See
See you
ya.
on the other side.
Okay, off to the kitchen for me. It is really good.
Oh,
It's
I'm glad.
really good.
So, welcome to Hollywood Kitchen, where I make recipes attributed to stars of Hollywood's golden age. And today I am very fortunate to be speaking with biographer Stephen Doug Youngkin. You go by Doug, right?
I go by either one or
Okay.
both of those are the most charitable thing I'm called.
Author of The Lost One, A Life of Peter Lorre. So welcome to Hollywood Kitchen. I am really happy to be here to speaking with you today. And let's dive in and talk about Peter Lorre. How did you first discover his work?
When I was in graduate school, I attended quite a number of film festivals, usually centered around a director or a genre or an actor. And one of these was featured the AIP horror comedies from the early 60s, mostly directed by Roger Corman and starring Boris Karloff, Vincent Price, Basil Rathbone, and Peter Lorre. Something struck me when I saw Comedy of Terrors. Lorre looked absolutely exhausted, which he was. Joyce Jameson referred to him as the martyr of the picture. But something else struck me, that behind the thin veneer of comedy or humor that he was projecting, there seemed to be something quite other, maybe something weary, sad. That resonated with me. And I decided to poke around and see what had been written about Lorre, because I wanted to know, it begged the question, what happened between M that catapulted him to international fame and Muscle Beach Party and The Patsy, which a film he detested, by the way. And I found really nothing at the library. And I had developed an interest in film history, not my chosen field, but I decided to start digging around because that's what a researcher does. And I thought what I'd first do is reach out to directors, actors, writers, producers who work with Lorre, who might be willing to share their personal histories, their working relationships, their memories of Lorre. And I've got to say this, when they were still around, because that was a long time ago. And at this point, most of them are gone. Frankie Avalon is still around. Barbara Eden, both elderly, and they date from Lorre's very last few films. Also, through academic connections, I reached out to Vincent Price, who was on the Indian Arts Board, and he was one of the most gracious, generous gentlemen I ever met. And he kept the door open for my questions and his answers for a very long time. He put me in contact with Celia Lofsky, Peter's first wife, and that mushroomed into contacts with Lorre's family members, including his brothers and daughter. He also put me in touch with Robert Chutan, Peter's lawyer, who took Lorre from bankruptcy in 1949 to the end of his life, basically, as a best friend and caretaker. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do with this material, but eventually I started tying everything up toward a biography.
I have trouble kind of watching those Corman films because I feel like I see exactly what you mean. There's like a sadness, and he looks puffy and bloated and sad. And it's just, having first discovered him in The Maltese Falcon in his early work when I was in film school, And then to see the Corman stuff, I have a really hard time watching that stuff because of, how he kind of comes across at the end.
Well, it's interesting because I interviewed Sam Arkoff, who produced these films. And he said, Lorre and I agreed, this is a horror's business, and we're in it for the buck. Now, Lorre did not feel that way earlier in his life. But at this point, he did not have much money, and he was really worried that he was not going to leave his daughter anything, which sadly is what turned out to happen. So he just did these films. They weren't horror films as far as he was concerned. They were comedies, and he made them more comic with his improvisations, which annoyed Boris Karloff and kind of frustrated Vincent Price. But it was his Lorre being Lorre, and that's kind of what he needed to do.
What was the most challenging thing that you encountered in writing this book?
Well, so many American actors, grew up in America, made films in America, were bound to the studio star system. But Lorre, I had to track from Hungary to Breslau, Germany, to Zurich and Vienna and Berlin, and then Paris and London and the United States, and then back to post-war Germany. So his life and career were really spread out. And that necessarily spread out my research, East and West Berlin, when they were still divided, and many other archives in these countries. That was challenging.
What were you the most surprised to discover during all of your research? Like what came as the biggest surprise?
Lorre's theater career, when I dug deeply, he made so many appeared in so many plays and in such a variety of roles. I mean, classic drama, comedy, song, and dance. He did everything. And I think he so appreciated his own range, which he had demonstrated, and was frustrated by the fact that Hollywood didn't necessarily share that interest in his range. The other thing, Bertolt Brecht, the German dramatist and poet, was a very close friend of Lorre's and a collaborator. And for some reason, Brecht maintained the loyalty of all of the women in his life, who one author said supplied sex and text. Lorre was the same way. I don't know if it's a European thing, but he maintained close relationships with all three wives, and two of the wives with each other. And on the night he died, he was visited by all three wives, and they remarked on his deathly pallor. And Anna Marie even ended up rubbing his feet. So that was surprising also.
Wow. You were talking about the versatility, and I love classic Hollywood horror. And I feel that he and Bela both had that frustration of having such incredible range on the stage in their home countries, and then kind of being shoehorned once they got to Hollywood. And it seems to me like Lugosi and Lorre really hated that. But again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Vincent Price and Boris Karloff were like, whatever, hey, it's work. And it seems like they didn't mind it as much. What do you think about that?
Yeah, the typecast, Lorre is the pint-sized Boris Karloff. Lorre said he never understood why the horror label persisted, and claimed that he had never appeared in a horror film. What he did, he said, was portray psychological terror, the study of evil. No cosmetic disfigurement, intuitive understanding. Now, he also tended to put a little bit of humor with his menace. Unlike Karloff and Lugosi, for example, Price did that. Interestingly enough, he worked with Price and Karloff in 1940 in a film called You'll Find Out, which was just a silly old dark house comedy. And he worked again with Karloff in The Boogeyman Will Get You, basically a spin-off of Arsenic No Lace. There again, they were comedies, not horror films. And And again, he thought of the horror comedies with the Roger Corman horror comedies. He thought of those as not horror, but simply comedies. And as I said, his improvisation turned them more so into comedies. Now, one caveat, toward the very end of his life, in one of his last interviews, he actually admitted, yes, he did one horror film, broke his record, and that was The Beast with Five Fingers, which again, he didn't want to make. It was his swan song at Warner Brothers.
I would argue Mad Love is a horror film.
Most people consider it a horror film, and he didn't. I think one of the reasons he didn't want it to be a horror film is it was his first film in the United States, and he was trying to shed that typecast. So that's not the way you start out. So he just basically thought, I'm going to deny it is a horror film and march forward and see if I can display my versatility and my range. He had a few departure roles in his life. I'll give a million, for example, but it is so forgotten and little known at this point, much overshadowed by the sinister roles.
You know what has shocked me lately? I've been the in-house tour guide at Hollywood Forever Cemetery since 2002. And Peter Lorre is there in the Cathedral Mausoleum. He's on the tour. I've had a lot of young goth women lose their minds over him. And this just kind of started happening fairly recently. And he's got lipstick on his grave. And then a young lady wrote to me and said, I love Hollywood Kitchen. I'd really like you to do an episode about Peter Lorre. Here's the recipe. And I was like, he's having a moment. I love him, of course, but I've got Valentino on the tour, Tyrone Power. Like, I never kind of viewed Peter Lorre as a sex symbol or a romantic type figure, but I'm kind of starting to be surprised at the number of young women that see it very differently.
I was surprised too, and then overwhelmed by the number of young women who are entranced and obsessed with Lorre. I mean, honestly, as a sex symbol, I don't know if it is the villainous aspect, the sinister appeal, in the same way that when he went to Las Vegas, the mobsters just adopted him and wanted to protect him and kept people away from him because they identified with him. Now, these young women, I don't think identified with Lorre, but I met one woman during a showing of Island of Doomed Men who was just madly in love with Lorre. So he clearly had that effect, still has that effect on some young women. I'm not sure I can explain it.
I can't either. He is hypnotic. I mean, the first time I saw M, you cannot take your eyes off of him for a second. He just transfixes you in that film. And then I finally got to see it on a big screen here in Los Angeles. And even more so is his effect, completely hypnotic.
Yeah. Speaking of Mad Love, it was fun. I was with Kathy Lorre one day, who became a very dear friend. And we were driving down, I think it was Sunset, and a small theater was playing Mad Love. So we watched it together. And Kathy looked, Peter said, my daughter looks like me, only it was more, he said something more flattering about his daughter. She looks more like me, but on her it looks good, something like that. And Kathy looked so much like Peter from Mad Love. Not any other period of his life or career, but from Mad Love. They have exactly the same face. So I don't know if the ticket person noticed it, but it was interesting to sit in the theater and watch Mad Love with her.
Oh, wow. I did an episode before she passed with Cora Sue Collins, who played the little girl Peter operates on in Mad Love. And she was, of course, a child actress in Hollywood in the 30s. And she told me that Peter was very, very nice. And that when they were doing the scene together, he dropped the prop scalpel, which was apparently a real scalpel, and it cut her leg. And I was like, wait, you were cut by Peter Lorre? That's pretty cool. But she had very nice things to say about him.
Well, I interviewed Frances Drake, who co-starred.
She's in Hollywood Forever too.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
She told me that Peter wanted to meet her before they started filming, so she could see what he looked like with that bald head, because he didn't want to frighten her. So he said, I want to meet you first and get to know me so you won't be frightened. And he was that sensitive.
And it had to be very hard for him what was going on in his homeland. A few years ago here in LA, the Skirball did a whole exhibit about the German immigrants who came over to flee Hitler and the Nazis and all the artistic contributions they brought to Hollywood. And the exhibit was so good. I literally went 2 days in a row to that exhibit. And I remember they had Peter Lorre's passport there. And it was so interesting. And it had to have been such like psychological torment to think of your homeland and even your family members going through all this, and you're so many miles away and can't do anything to stop it. That had to have been very difficult for him.
Well, Lorre was far luckier than most emigres. Most came here with nothing. You had college professors working as dishwashers, if they could even get open the door to come in. He arrived with a contract with Columbia. So the golden doors opened for him to the studio star system right away. And he was very aware of that and very, very grateful. And just basically in this country, he just wanted to start over, put M behind him, put Men Who Knew Too Much behind him, and just start over. He loved California. He loved the sunshine. He loved walking the beach. He loved being American. He and Billy Wilder used to go to wrestling matches with Man Mountain Dean because they were into Americana.
Oh, that's really cool. What is your favorite of his movies?
My favorite film? It's easy to default to the classics like M and Maltese Falcon. But one of my favorite films is a economically told 69-minute, The Face Behind the Mask. It intrigued me. I saw it when I was very, very young, did not know who Peter Lorre was, and only realized later that this starred Peter Lorre. But the role seemed custom fit to Lorre's situation in Hollywood, in the sense that his typecast so often restricted him to villainous roles, in the same way that the immigrant's burnt face barred honest work. So I love that kind of allegorical dimension of that film. The other film, another one of my favorites, and people, when I mention this, they roll their eyes, and that is Silk Stockings, the musical comedy with Fred Astaire and Sid Charisse.
Oh, yeah.
Mainly because Lorre loved making it, and you can see that on screen. He was having such a good time despite being not well at the time. He was so heavily invested in the film that he went to choreographer Hermes Pan, and he said, hey, what if I did a Russian Godotsky, hanging onto my elbows on 2 chairs and kicking my feet out? And he does do that. It looks very difficult executing it. I mean, he was strained. But that was his investment in the film. He loved that. Now, Ruben Mamoulian, who directed it, was a good friend of Lorre's. And he knew that mischievous, fun side of Lorre. And he said, why isn't Hollywood using this? So he decided to use it, and he gave Lorre a departure role that Lorre much appreciated and had so much fun making.
Yeah, that's a wonderful part for him. He's just so fun to watch. And he's so singular. You know, that line in Sunset Boulevard where Gloria Swanson says they had faces then. And Peter Lorre, Edward G. Robinson, like Betty Davis, I think those are such great examples of unique faces that we just don't have anymore.
And you cannot put a finger on any particular Lorre face. Look at him in M, Look at him in Maltese Falcon or Three Strangers, and then again, maybe Comedy of Terrors at the very end of his life. Most people wouldn't think that's the same actor. He looks so different. And of course, there's many, many reasons for that. At Warner Brothers, he was with a woman many, many years his junior, and he got in shape. He played tennis, he swam, rode horses, ate better, and it's the best he ever looked. And he was off drugs at that point. And I won't get into drugs because that's a huge topic, but he was clean for most of those years, and he looked healthier.
One of the questions that always pops up on Hollywood Kitchen is, did the stars actually cook or make food? I always freely admit, like, most of them did not. Vincent Price, Joan Crawford, and Dietrich were all avid cooks, but I doubt many of them were. And the recipe we're going to make in the second segment of the show here is Peter Lorre's recipe, allegedly, for pork chops and scalloped potatoes. So who knows? I mean, he was Jewish, and I don't know how he felt about eating pork, but I'm assuming the cookbook was probably put out by, or probably edited perhaps by a publicist. It came out in 1939, the recipe. So.
Yeah, I can't stand behind any specific recipes. When I interviewed many, many people, you just don't interview Alfred Hitchcock and then ask, what Lorre's favorite dish was. But
no, not at all, not at all.
So I really never pursued that. I don't believe he ever cooked.
Yeah,
I do know that he
time.
Well, that's true too. I know that he Sidney Greenstreet cooked, and I know that he and Joan Loring went over there for dinner once or twice. But Lorre never talked about food. I think he once mentioned he liked Hungarian goulash. Actually, it was his pharmacist told me that, who I ran into just incidentally. But that's the only food input that I have. I just never talked about that. When I interviewed Selyulowski, she tried to feed me. You could not eat enough to satisfy her. But I just still never brought me around to asking about Peter's favorite dishes. And now I kind of wish I had.
Well, to me, even if they didn't make the dish themselves or even eat it, to me, looking at this food of a star, it's kind of a way to humanize them. Because like I say on my tour, when I talk about the Jane Mansfield Memorial Marker, I say these people might have been sex symbols, icons, movie stars, all this stuff, but at the end of the day, they're people. And to me, looking at the food, looking at their lives, it's kind of a way to reflect on the fact they were really real human beings,
Yeah, I would agree. The only unflattering food connection I can think of is when Lorre was very heavy at the end of his life. And he and Tommy Gomez had an all-you-can-eat contest when they were making The Left Fist of David for Collector's Item, which was a television series. And they went to Brittingham's restaurant, and they worried. The people around him. I was like, how many plates of food can you eat? At that point, I don't think he was worried about pork. He was pretty much a non-observant Jew. So I think at least at Brittingham's, he was trying to shovel down just about everything he could. But competing with Tommy Gomez must have been tough because Gomez was a good deal larger.
Do we know who won their eating contest?
I don't know. The director or the producer, whose name doesn't come to me at the moment, he said that they were really worried about his health. Like, did he not care to be abusing, I suppose, his digestive tract that much? But yeah, that's probably the only food story that I collected in all my interviews.
It's okay. But it just amazes me how popular he still is. In fact, I think Stranger on the Third Floor is getting a new DVD release, and it's going to be at the upcoming Turner Classic Movies Film Festival. So he's still so incredibly popular.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all things come around again. It's funny you should mention that, because I was taking such a long time writing this book. And a lot of people believe you're never going to finish, because maybe I'm more of a researcher than a writer. And researchers just love to go on and on and on and never really start writing. And that is true. Also, I was in graduate school doing other things. So I was at it such a very, very long time. And people would say, people are going to forget who Peter Lorre is. And sadly, I do encounter this when I'm at the gym or wherever. I might mention Casablanca. Most young people haven't even heard of it. Or they've heard of Alfred Hitchcock. That rings a bell. But I'm glad that Lori's coming around again. So
I do a night tour sometimes of the cemetery as well. And one time I had this couple, they were like probably 20, take my night tour. And they texted me later that night and they said, we're going to stay up all night long and watch Peter Lorre movies. Thank you for the tour. And I was like, that's why I got out of bed today. Thank you. So I try really hard to help these people and their artistry live on as much as I can. And you've just done a spectacular job. I mean, this book is very, very comprehensive, and it's very well done.
Well, thank you very much. It took too many years to do, I must admit that. And when people would doubt that I would ever finish it, I actually doubted I would finish it too. But it was actually my second wife who could kick me over the finish line. So.
Oh, Rome wasn't built in a day. So, as the saying goes. Sorry, my cat's causing trouble over here. Well, I really am so grateful for you taking the time out this morning to speak with me. It's been a true pleasure. And I will send you the final episode when it's done.
Well, thank you, Carrie. It's been great talking with you too, and very comfortable and very cozy with your books and your kitty. There's one here too, that I'm receiving a lot of flack from my daughter for overfeeding. So I'm surprised that the cat did not walk through also, because she pushes doors open. But,
mine too. Mine has a Hollywood connection. In 2019, this very large black cat just started, we have a lot of stray cats at the cemetery, started following me through the entire cemetery. He'd go everywhere I went. And he loved to sleep on top of Cecil B. DeMille's crypt. And he lives for being a star. And so one day I just said, that cat's ready for his close-up, Mr. DeMille. And that's what I named him, Close-Up. And then I adopted him and took him home, and he lives with me now.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. Yeah, that mine is a tuxedo, and yeah, that is a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
And thank you. And let me know about Monsterpalooza, because I would be incredibly honored to speak with you at Monsterpalooza if you would like to do that.
Well, thank you. What area of town do you live in?
I live in Glendale.
Okay. Oh, that's where Lucy Chase Williams lived. I don't know if you knew Lucy. Lucy did the films of Vincent Price. Are you familiar with that book?
I've heard of it. I love Vincent Price. Oh my gosh. David Skull was a friend of mine, and he and I did an episode of Hollywood Kitchen, and I made a Vincent Price recipe, and we talked about Vincent.
Well, you need to pick up a copy of the films of Vincent Price. I mean, I was involved in the films of Peter Lorre, but Lucy was able to get Citadel Press to do some color. So some of the posters are reproduced in color, and it's just wonderful, wonderful. I always hoped that she would do the definitive biography of Vincent Price. She pulled tens of thousands of photocopies from his collection at the Library of Congress, boxes and boxes. She was a master interviewer. and a very good writer, and she had so many connections. And she could have written a brilliant definitive biography. Sadly, she moved on, and it's not going to happen at this point. But Bryce, I feel so lucky to have had contact with him over the years. And he was so helpful, so helpful. And he also wrote the introduction to the films of Peter Lorre for us. And interestingly enough, I was at the grocery store getting cat food for the cats, had 3 at that time. And I got home, and my wife said she'd gotten a call, and she was annoyed with me for some reason. And she was kind of rude picking up the receiver. She admitted that. Like, what? And it was Vincent Price calling to say that he had written the introduction and that the handwritten copy was on its way to me. So she felt a little embarrassed to say, oh my God, that was Vincent Price on the phone when you were out. So that was, but he was so generous. Yeah.
I love him so much. He is one of my all-time favorites. And he was also quite a cook too. I have 3 of his cookbooks. So.
Yeah, I had his cookbook at one point, and I'll say I had lunch with him one day, and my field at that point was American Indian. I was working on my PhD, and it was government relations with the Indians anyway. Northern Plains, Sioux Agency, Standing Rock. Anyway, I won't get into all of that. But he said to me, why are you bothering studying or writing about film history? It's of no importance. Get back to your chosen field. Well, I mean, how do you react to that? I was already, quite committed to the Lorre biography, but he said, get this done and get back to your field. So he was kind of acting as a mentor, in addition to an informant. But no, I can just say good things about him all day. So, well, anyway, I'm assuming none of this will be used, this little chit chat.
So this is great, because when I first started Hollywood Kitchen, I started it during lockdown. I was watching all these James Lipton Actors Studio interviews. I'm like, I guess this is how I interview people. And then I thought, I'm not James Lipton. So I kind of like to do my interviews as if you and I were sitting in my kitchen and we're just drinking coffee, cooking, talking about the stars. Like, I have a really informal approach, and I think it works better for me. So
I totally, you basically turn anything into just a conversation, a very comfortable conversation. And I've done many, many interviews and DVD extras and all of that kind of thing. And oftentimes you feel you're really on the hot seat. The camera's looking at you, and you try not to fumble, and you're not comfortable, and you're nervous. And with you, it's just like talking to a friend. And that I really appreciate.
Yeah, well, I've been really lucky. I've gotten a lot of the children or grandchildren of stars to talk to me too. And what I try to always do is have multiple conversations with them before we ever shoot. And I tell them, I'm not trying to be Barbara Walters. The goal is not to make you cry. So if there's any topic that is off the table, if there's anything you're like, no, we're not doing this, then I respect that. And you just tell me what direction you want to go. And I think that's actually been a really good thing, because I've gotten a lot of these people that are like, yeah, I'll talk to you, sure. Because they know I care about them. I care about their parent and that legacy, and I'm going to treat that with love. And, so I feel very glad that I've been able to earn their trust.
Well, you do a good job with that. A really good job. I wish you could have had Kathy on the show. Of course, she died a long time ago, but I think you would have really enjoyed meeting her. I mean, she was only I think 11 when Peter died. I can't remember the exact the years, but Kathy actually, she was having some problems on the East Coast, and she was having some problems on the West Coast. So she needed somewhere in between. And at that point, I lived in Salt Lake City, and she came and lived with my wife and I for, I don't know how many months it was. She wanted to get home to spend Christmas with Mumley, or Celia, she called Mumley. But so I had Kathy. Kathy, no one in the family hamstrung me or any requirements or don't talk about this. No, no. It was open book from everybody. They wanted a good, solid biography, warts and all. And Kathy was very much that way. And Kathy was also incredibly protective, which I one night I was watching a horror show, a movie, or I turned it on. I came back from dinner, it was late, and turned on the TV, and there was a fellow who hosted a horror series out of Oakland, I think, and I don't remember his name, but he had Robert Kramer on. I think that was his name, the guy who wrote a book about Bela Lugosi. And I just turned the TV on, and the first thing I hear is, yes, I'm now writing a biography of Peter Lorre in collaboration with Celia. And I hit the ceiling, like, what? Because that's what I was doing. And I called Kathy, and Kathy, she had my back always. And she called Celia and said, no, you're not talking to this man again. Youngkin is the biographer. And she was that protective of me doing the biography. So, I mean, what can you say about someone who has your back like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's everything. Well, this has just been such a delightful conversation. Oh my God, I could talk to you like all day. Wish I had that.
Well, if I made it out there, maybe I can sit in your kitchen and we can drink coffee or something.
I would love that. Well, please keep me posted about the end of May. And I really look forward to talking to you again soon.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, Carrie,
thank
very,
you
very
so
much. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
So, welcome to Hollywood Kitchen, where I make. Hang on. How do I give me a second, folks? I'm trying to. Oh, technology, you vex me so.
Okay, you do this every month.
That doesn't mean I know what I'm doing, Ruth.
I
know what I'm doing.
But I mean, you can take notes or something.
They change it every time I get used to something. They change the buttons. They change the way it's doing best I can.
He was wonderful, and may I say, we're all glad you're not James Lipton or Barbara Walters.
Thank you. I would watch all these interviews thinking, how can I do that? And then I'd be like, yeah, I'm not these people. So,
be you, everyone else is taken.
That's right. That's right. And that's great advice. That's great advice.
But that was fascinating.
Ruth, tell us how your version is progressing, because you and Danny have been real busy back there.
Okay, so I decided to try to stick close to this original write-up that they did for his Peter Lorre's recipe of one of his dishes that he probably never ate. Again, very sketchy on a cup of or quarter of or heat or anything. But you guys all know I really love being in the kitchen. So I did look up to see a pork chop scallop recipe. They're online, the Encyclopedia Britannica on the Google. And so I did the white potato with that's the thinner skin, and chop them thinly sliced, not not a julienne or anything, but thinly sliced because they cook really well and quickly.
By hand, your knife skills are amazing. Remind me not to cross you.
No band-aids. So then I did a layer of thinly sliced white onion. I seasoned the pork chops. I had rendered some fat. I trimmed them up and rendered some fat off of them, and then I seared them. One layer of pork chop on top, another layer of potato and onion, and then another layer of pork chop, and then I topped it with the potato and onion. And then in the recipe, it said to use condensed milk. And initially I was a little confused. I was like, well, condensed milk is just the sweetened condensed. So I wasn't understanding. But I do know that in scalloped potatoes, there is milk in there, a dairy product. So I decided to use some regular whole milk, some of the sweetened condensed, half and half, and sour cream. And then I put a little of the herbe de Provence in that and gave it a good stir. And then I poured it over the everything that was layered in my baking dish, and then I've covered it, and it's in the oven at 350. I think it'll probably be like 45 minutes, and then I'll uncover it and give it a chance to like brown up a little bit. And so I think it's gonna work out okay.
You should have a cooking show. I never saw a measurement cup. She's just like, oh, that's
natural. She has corrected a lot of my mistakes on this whole thing.
And it's really funny because my mother that raised me for a while, she didn't like cooking, wasn't a deal for her. But one of my foster mothers, she was a great cook, Southern woman. And then my DNA is Southern. Both of my biological parents are from Mississippi. They both cooked. I heard stories about the grandmothers who cooked, and I have some cousins and I just liked cooking anyway. So, my mom kind of let me have some free reign in the kitchen when I like to play around in there. So, it's easy and fun for me. And what better way to show your love or respect to people is making them a meal. There's
And when I
nothing better.
screwed up royally on the Dean Martin's chicken burgundy, you swooped in and fixed that big mess.
Oh, I just follow the recipe. That's
tried, but you know what you're doing a lot more than I do.
I also think it's in my DNA. I really do. I really do. I think it's in my DNA. I've got this history of these great Southern women, living in the South, making stuff. So yeah. So
you can't have Hollywood Kitchen. My favorites are the disaster. Very few. But what was the Norma Shear one?
Oh God, Norma Shear's oatmeal sticks.
Oh, there was nothing about that. I'm like, woo.
Yeah.
If I crumpled
even Ruth couldn't fix that.
No, if I crumpled up this napkin and ate it, it would taste better
Mhm.
than her oatmeal sticks.
Mhm.
That was a big disaster. Oh, I think the first episode I ever did it was Anne Dvorak's fruit salad a la Joe.
Right?
And I made the mistake of using fresh fruit and not canned, which is a huge mistake.
Yeah,
I learned the hard way.
Yes, yeah.
And it was right when it was right in the middle of lockdown. And I kept waking up all night long, off and on, checking to see if it had gotten hard, the Jello, and it hadn't. And I was walking into my kitchen because my refrigerator was down the hall, because where I lived at the time. And I tripped and fell and just landed in the Jello. And I sat on the floor in the Jello, just crying. And I was like, "Wow, this is where things are at right now."
We need pictures of that.
Yeah, I didn't get any, but it was a sad scene. It was a very sad scene. So
most everything has been great, and so far this is good. I'm sure Bruce will be better than mine, but
No,
okay.
I'm looking forward to each version, and yours was really good. Danny had a thicker pork chop, and that's why it took his longer to bake.
It's like,
but they were beautiful. I mean, my goodness, I'm a girl who loves a pork chop.
Oh, there's so many ways to do things. That's the kind of the magic of food.
Yeah.
There can be 10 different ways to make one dish.
I would like stewed pork chops in tomato sauce with just herbs and vegetables and whatnot. Beautiful. The pork chop does everything. Pork does everything.
Yeah.
Let's just be real about that. It can adopt any flavors, different cuts of it. And the thinner ones, you can whip up dinner in a heartbeat with a thin pork chop, steam some rice, and saute you a vegetable.
There you go.
And I keep looking at these Hungarian pastries Danny got from the market this morning.
Let's see what we have.
I felt like Peter Lorre would be eating them. These are kind of truffle things. Again, poppy seeds are very popular in Hungarian Jewish cuisine.
Yes.
I'm gonna try one of those.
One of this fruit tart.
Yeah, here's a knife if you
little tart.
Right? True. Oh God, that looks delicious.
I'm gonna open one of these truffles too.
I want a flight of pastries. That's what the beer flights.
I like the bite of stuff because
Okay,
I'm a sweet eater. I like a bite of things so I can.
Or vintage plates. So Peter Lorre.
Lovely these are.
All right, guys. I think we should do a food toast. All right. So.
What is this one?
It's a truffle.
And this is a truffle also.
They're both are, yeah.
Okay, guys. To the great Peter Lorre.
Peter Lorre.
Peter Lorre.
Lorre, we love you. All right. So good.
That's good. I wish I could say I made them.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to post lots of photos about Ruth's pork chops when they're done. And please stay tuned for more food, fun, and film history from Hollywood Kitchen.
Cheers.